Hello and welcome to Ebenchekwa, which is the Safe Space podcast. Think of it as a place where voices rise, our minds shifts, and communities begin to heal. On Ebenchekwa, we look at issues concerning everything, majorly centered on gender-based violence. My name is Ekene Odigwe, and I'm beyond honored to be your host. And this is also welcoming you back on the show. It is not just a podcast. It is a renewed conversation that matters deeply to us all. And this season, we begin with hope. We are looking at a conversation that meant to help us heal from within. So think of home, or generally, we all think of home as a place that meant to feel the safest, but often isn't. So our topic today is starting again, starting strong, reigniting the fight against SGBV in our homes. In the studio, I'm joined by someone you're going to be introduced to you in a moment. But our mission on Ebenchekwa is very clear: to challenge silence, shift mindsets, and empower communities to speak up, especially when it is the hardest to do. And what's better place to start than starting right from our homes? Joining us in this powerful conversation, it's someone who understands the role of faith, family, and leadership deeply. He is the youth pastor, but also he is an assistant pastor of Ebenezer Parish under LFC,
Within Christian Church of
Redeemed Christian Church of God.
Yes.
So, and then LFC would mean
Leaders of Faith and Culture.
leaders of faith and culture. You see, he is well centered to help us understand and explore this issue. Talking with Pastor Christian Ifeanyi Eze.
Thank you, Mr. Kenny. Thank you.
All right, thanks for joining us. Now, one of the things about Ebenchekwa is also laying basis of conversations, raising it home, and we want it to be as homey and relatable as possible. The first question everyone's I've done a bit of introduction for you, but people would wonder, why are you the person to speak on this? Like, why does it matter to you to speak on this?
Okay. Thank you once again. It matters to me very, very much. One is, just like he rightly said, the society will need someone to speak over a matter that is an authority. First is, I'm a father. I have family. So anything that is happening in the home, I'm not a stranger for it. Secondly, I have the privilege to be a minister of the gospel. And in my capacity as a minister of the gospel, you meet families, I relate with youth, I relate with adults, I relate with all kinds of people in the society. So, and in that capacity, people come to you to share their situations, their ordeals, their testimony, both the good and the bad. So, and also being one of the leaders of faith that a WABMA Foundation trained on sex and gender-based violence. The training also empowered me to speak on this issue and host sensitization campaign on this very matter.
That is very good. And first of all, kudos to you. It's not every day that you have leaders of faith taking a stance on issues as it concerns sex and gender-based violence. So we commend you for taking a stance and taking strong stance on that matter. We know that home shapes us, it's a fact, and but it can as well wound us. So from your role as a faith leader, how have you seen this silence inside families enable or even protect these views?
Okay. Silence is a killer. Not just that it enables violence, is an enabler. Silence is also a killer. In homes, there's this the understanding that people have. Maybe if somebody's father is a perpetrator of violence, maybe a father is molesting his child, that is, it sounds very, very odd. It's something that people want to keep away from the ear. But the truth of the matter is that, if you had wanted the ear not to hear it, you should have not perpetrated the act. So what you don't want men to hear, you don't do it. Because it's not after you have done it and then you want to cover it. Even God, the scripture is very clear. The Bible said, "He that covereth his sin shall not prosper."
We think situations, realities where people say, "Oh, it happened inside the home. This is a case for us to treat at home." It's not even a case to be brought out to the public. And then another person would take a stand and said, "Oh yes, it is a family matter. Step away from it."
Okay, yes, people do that. They do it a lot. And that's one of the way they kill victims and also encourage the perpetrators to go further. Because and how will from in some biblical perspective, if you look at the Bible, what made the fall of man in the Garden of Eden to be effective? It was silence. It was the silence of Adam when his wife was having a family discussion that shouldn't have been with the serpent. The serpent came in and began to have discussion and began to demand obedience. And the man was there. He didn't talk. He never opened his mouth, assuming he rose up and said, "Enough of that." If he broke that conversation by serious interruption, the human would have not made that mistake. So silence didn't start today. And the evil of silence didn't start from today. So the man waited until the wife ate the forbidden seed and he gave to him. Now when the matter now became a problem, he now began to look for a way to exonerate himself. And that's what we do today. That's what we do today. You will see a husband maltreating the wife. And the issue is that the woman will not like to share it with somebody else. And the reason is because, you see, the sentiment is around, it's a family matter. You don't wash your dirty linen outside. That proverb is relative. It's not an absolute truth. When you are dealing with things that are relative, it's only applicable where it should be applied. For example, if somebody's husband or wife has a terminal disease, it's not proper to go outside and begin to broadcast it. Maybe it's something that will damage maybe the reputation of the individual. That's a different context. But somebody can, that's not evil. Somebody cannot be raping a child. We have seen and heard of cases where
an uncle has been, in fact, this girl is an orphan. The father and the mother is dead. And the uncle has been on the neck of this girl. He has been molesting her. And somebody will say the girl should not tell anybody. So that, so that the interest of the uncle will be protected, or the interest of the girl? If she becomes pregnant in the course of that molestation, what happens? Will this still not become public? Who will bear the shame? Can you hide pregnancy? Silence, silence. Does silence provide? Is there a way silence provide a offer for pregnancy? It doesn't.
You're speaking from an experience, not just as a leader, but as someone who is working at the intersection of faith people. And your experience makes a lot of sense, especially when you're sharing it the way you put it now. At the situation, tap it out. Now, one of the things you said that made also a lot of sense is how to share, or more or less how these challenges you faced have impacted the work you do. So let's look at it from what challenges you faced, especially in challenging situations like this, and or cultural, I don't want to call them cultural norms because they're not cultural norms.
There are challenges. Where I'm getting pretend the idea alaba of human apply to this. Also, we'll pass situations where Umwada would say,
Of course, you've abused our daughter or you've abused our son, yes, and this is something you had to do to pay for damages. Yes, understandable. But also in around the challenges of silence in homes, like what challenges have you encountered in asking people to come speak up, to come share, to not just fold their hands and say, "Oh, Obasaron here," and all of that?
Okay, this matter comes. There are a lot of challenges that we have seen. Sometimes a youth will be willing to speak to you. You better it. But the parents who have had the meeting, after speaking with you, they will come back home.
It's in their house that where he is speaking. And when you now come back, we now tell them what the counseling he went for. So the parents do not support. Yes, some parents need not support. Why? I thought, it's just like what we're talking about.
That our people think that covering evil is a virtue. It doesn't make it go away. That's a look at it as a way of I think evil management. I call it a way of management of evil. Is by saying, okay, don't speak, don't talk, then let another ear hear it. Is your father, is your uncle, what do you want people to say? I met during one of the Bible schools where I taught, a lady registered for training, and in the course of training, as my students, each time you raise the issue of marriage, and one of the courses we teach is marriage and family. So the lady is, in fact, she's hostile. Each time you talk about anything about, marriage and family life, oh, that's a new gray area for her. I noticed that. I had to ask her, what is the problem? What is this agitation? Why is it that he agitated each time issues of marriage? That please, this is what everybody is looking forward for. Every youth here want to marry. Everybody is preparing for wedding day and all that. And this lady said, she took me to the corner and said that what she saw her father did to her mom is the reason why she doesn't want to have anything to do with any man. Sounds of night, trauma response. And not just that, she added that if she finally marry any man, if the man tries anything she doesn't like, she will pack and go. You notice that she's ready to quit the marriage ever before she entered. So, is when you finish, you will return to the parents after talking to the pastor. Another one, some are threatened. We have a case of one that the uncle threatened and said to her that let her ever say anything to anybody. If you try it, he is going to kill her.
I think we've had like scenarios where people say, if you say anything, I'm going to do something to your family, to your non-young. As a way to protect their loved one, they take all of that in and wallow in silence.
This one is the perpetrator is not only that he perpetrated the evil, he is also now using threat as a weapon of silence, a weapon to make sure that what he has done is never heard. And it's not that he's intending to change. It is a threat such that each time he comes, you have no option but to do what he wants to do. And not just, and when you finish, you have no right also to discuss it with anybody. Some of them, their phones are always searched. Somebody's earphone will always be searched because he wants to know if he has spoken with anybody. Do you know that there are some, this is a digital world. There is a way you can be monitoring somebody's conversation. Some will go to the extent of setting up certain things to monitor the victim's conversation. It makes sure that the person does not, either by phone call or by social media chats, discuss the violence with anybody. You don't discuss it with anybody. It's a very serious matter in our society. And there was a time you talked about the made nation of murder. What made this thing, more critical is that it has gotten to the point that even victims are becoming perpetrators. Could you look at it? Explain more. Some people that they maltreated by their mother in the community, because there was no support, no vindication. Nobody came for them when they passed through that. They vowed that any other woman that the husband died in this community, the person is going to also go through what they went through.
I also think most of these things is because people do not know. Because you, in your case, especially in your family, you do know. And so that's why you can challenge it, or you can ask, clarify. Why? A lot of persons do not know, and because they don't know, it rubs them off. They're like, in cases like that, I've seen situations where people say, oh, because my Amaro give us the monetary, monetize its prevalence, and then people get on with that. This is Ebenchekwa, if you're just joining us, and we're having a conversation around how it concerns our home. We're speaking standing again, standing strong, and reigniting the fight against sexual and gender-based violence in our homes. Okay, so most of the conversations we've had so far is to lay the basis itemize what the problems look like, speak to them and understand what happens when people don't challenge what it is. And then also what happens when people sit on the fence. So this is not a situation where you chose to sit on the fence. This is a situation where you act, you stand and act. Now, in preparation for this program, we were able to move around Enugu and sampled opinions. We would listen to that, and when we get back, we'll speak some more.
A young lady came to me and said, look, I don't think I'm going to marry. I said, why? He said, the way my mother was treated, I don't want to marry. If you marry a lady from a broken home, you really need to be a person of God to manage her until she gets off all the challenges which has formed a background in her mind.
So most times when you see a boy, he's a bully. If you check, most of the time, it's because he has seen parents who are environments. Yes. So a lot of bullies come from homes where they've seen their father, or even their mother, bully the younger ones, or bully their spouse, or bully someone that should be a loved one. Some of you go as far as joining secret courts because of the level of violence they witnessed as children. So for them, it's a form of demonstrating power. It's a power base for them. So if there's no other idea, if I cannot demonstrate intellectual capacity, I can't demonstrate, let's say, I'm not the child that goes for school challenges, debates, quizzes. This is where my days is based on what I've gotten from home. So that's how they also express it. If the boys hearing that I am the first, I am it goes in their head. And just connecting to what she said now, for me, I don't believe excellence is not gender specific. If a girl deserves to be senior prefect, particularly in a unique school, you do the preparation, or to solve the problem, you can actually make it clear that you have head boy and head girl. That way it solves the problem, okay? So we have a lot of men who are toxic in their relationships, who are not responsible, that children cannot really look up to, because there was a gap. When they were boys or teenagers, nobody led them by the hand. So it's not always their fault, okay?
All right, back from the streets, a lot of conversations, a lot of issues were raised. Some of them scary, some of them is an everyday thing we see. So the men have to speak up. For example, so we need to build, it's about a home. So it's men are not allowed to share, to speak, then it is a problem. Remember, we're focusing on you being able to build a home. Is the idea that the home ought to be the safest place. Yes. Or sharing your thought without being judged, sharing your opinion without bias and without backlashes, and that could get you out. Now, a part of that also we saw where some compared religious leaders were sharing their thought about someone. I think you also shared it where a young lady said she's not going to get married. She still ended up getting married because of how the mother treated the father, or
How the father treated the mother.
yes. So it's a whole situation. How do you see that?
Actually, it happens because the home, for us, the way we look at the home, the church is secondary. The first platform where life is brewed, where culture, tradition is farmed, is in the home. Culture is not first built from external. It is the home is the primary platform. And so when we structure and build our home is very, very important in handling, in escalating SGBV or even curbing it.
So the home is the make
Exactly.
We're also lots in social studies. The home is the smallest unit of the society.
Exactly.
If the home is good and well built and love living through the homes, could replicate that on a larger scale.
Just like you see that the lady that the leader of faith was speaking on.
You see that what affected that lady, it was not the society that did it. It was the home.
Right from home.
Because our children watch us. One day, I was just playing with my wife. We were not quarreling. I was just playing. We were just playing. And maybe the play, our voice was high. So my son, is getting to 4 years. He rose to him. He said, "Daddy, don't talk to my mommy like that again."
Wow.
We began to tell you we are not quarrel.
But my wife, everyone, we began to convince him that it was not quarrel, or we are just playing. This is husband and wife play. If I say this is my wife, you say it's not your wife. This is your wife.
So what are we trying to point out? You see how that reaction, what it triggered in the boy.
Yeah.
It triggered something in him. Even how much more if it was a violent scene. So if the home
becomes violent, everybody there is not spared.
I think most of the conversations when people talk about SGBV, sexual and gender-based violence, the people that are let on the side track that no one remembers, children.
except
So, children from an abusive home tend to be, it was one of the issues raised.
Bully. Yes. So I've always had this belief that hurts people.
Exactly.
It's like this. And you mentioned just this. When the person, no man, I went through over the scenario, feel that no one came to her rescues. When it's her turn to be a leader, it's her turn to also foster the abuse.
exactly.
A lot of you could. So there's need for a lot of
Unlearning, relearning.
Exactly. Rehabilitation of victims. It is very, very important. Once somebody, my wife, almost, she wanted to read law in the university. And why? It was a revenge
Campaign. One she did to her mom, her dad died.
So she wanted to revenge that using the legal system. So, but the elder brother had better understanding and told her, "You won't read law. Don't go into that." Because he saw the way, the impact of that. So each time violence is perpetrated, it has terrible impact. It has terrible impact. For example, in my research, even of the Bible, I discovered that even parents, families that break apart, is actually they are perpetrating violence to the children. In my research of the Bible, I discovered that even this issue of divorce that happened in the home is originally from the scripture. It was one of the form of gender-based violence that men let out to women. Yes. It was not a way of, in our time is a way of managing marital crisis. But in the Bible, and that's why we see Jesus spoke the way he spoke. If you study Matthew chapter 19, study the account in the book of Malachi, you will notice that the people came to Jesus and said, "Why is it lawful for a man
to put away his wife for every cause, you will notice that it was not women who were asking to put away their husband. It was men who came and said, is he love? Do we have the right to, send our wife away for what if we find fault with her? And Jesus turned and said to them, this is not the standard in the beginning. This is not the way God intended it. And he now gave men stringent condition, because it was not normal for women that are married to be sleeping around in those days. You hardly hear case. In fact, it's almost impossible to hear that a married woman was sleeping around. So he gave them a condition and said, if you want to put away your wife, and it is not on the ground of fornication, then you are doing evil. And they now came back. The disciples of Jesus had it and said, if this is the condition, it is not good to marry. So it's the better we don't marry if we cannot escape it. So you see that even when parents break apart, who are they hurting? Is the violence also meted out? Because these children that have been brought into the home, they are not meant, they're supposed to see us together, smile together, build together. And if you watch anybody raised in a peaceful environment, that person is a peacemaker.
Well, most of the issues we've raised all came from the vox pop we heard. Now, part of that would be solutions. Let's talk solution. What does starting again look like in real terms, in homes, in churches, in communities?
Something new is coming to the victims of sex and gender-based violence. There is a new chapter. The chapter where your life was affected is not all about you. So you don't need to settle on that. There is a better chapter of you that is emerging. You are not forever deformed. There is, God has capacity. In the book of Jeremiah, he said, he's the one that moved the clay. If the clay mark in the hand of the potter, that's a damage. The potter has capacity to still make it into something new, brand new, very fresh. That's what this thing is telling us. There is hope. And for even the perpetrator of violence, something new is coming up. What is that something new? You can't continue like that.
The law is actually the voices of men, both leaders of faith, is going to rise up. It's not going to end. Things can't be hidden anymore.
You can only bury the truth for 3 days. After 3 days, it will resurrect. You can't bury truth forever. So even if you think you have hidden things, God said, nothing is hidden under the sun. So if you think that you can continue to perpetrate violence and nothing will happen, it's not true. It's not true. Somehow, somewhere, something will happen. And it's also a new chapter for you to change. It's a new chapter for you to stop perpetrating violence and to join the campaign. They begin to say, yes, I was evil before, but now something new. I need to rise to protect. Zacchaeus restituted. Is it not? The people he defrauded. A new chapter came in his life and he went and paid back. He restituted for what he did. So even perpetrators who can go back and restitute for what you have done. And that will bring healing, even to the community, to the family. And there will be peace.
Thank you so much. And to our listener, whether you're a parent,
Whether you are a church leader, whether you are a youth or someone who cares, here are just a few things you might want to be on the lookout for and things you can start to do today. It's no longer an option to be silent, to stay on the fence. First thing first is that you need to start speaking openly about respect, consent, and emotional safety.
for you,
for people around you, for people who come after you. You're laying something down. Don't excuse the views in the name of culture or correction. It doesn't do good to anybody. It's just like throwing a stone into the market. You do not know who it's going to hit. Support survivors and believe them when they speak, when they tell you the story. Hear them out and build family values on love and not fear. And now brings us to the end of this combat episode of Ebenchekwa, which is the Safe Space podcast, proudly powered by WABMA Media Development Foundation. Thank you for joining us today. And Pastor Ifeanyi Christian Eze, thank you so much for speaking up, sharing your stories, and taking a stand. We appreciate that so much. And to you, our dear listener, thank you again. It's just the beginning. And let's start again. Let's start strong and let's break the silence. Not just an air. It's about our dining tables, in our prayer meetings, and in an everyday conversations. Bring it, say it, because a shift in mindsets starts with you. And it can start today. Until next time, stay safe, stay strong, and never stop speaking out. Have a good one.